Right. Do Azamar really gain a ton from being Azamar? No, actually, it's really good. Yeah.
Our time has come. I shall not falter.
All right. So, for our first sample build of the day, we're going to look at what I played through Kingmaker with myself, and that is the Herald Collar Cleric. What we do is we start an Azamar so that we can get the benefits to Wisdom, Charisma, and Persuasion. We're going to go with a Cleric and a Herald Collar. So what this does is it removes one of the 2 domains you get as a normal cleric, which isn't going to be a huge deal for this build, and instead replaces that with a bunch of free benefits to summoning spells. A couple of them are feats you can take otherwise, but the really nice one is you can essentially, just like any other caster could turn any prepared spell into a heal, a Herald Collar can turn any prepared spell into a summon monster spell. It's not going to be a huge deal because later on we're going to be using meta magic summon undead, but that's kind of the base rig. Your stats are going to be, obviously you're going to maximize Wisdom because that's your main casting skill and casting ability, and you are a full caster. But it's also important to get a fair bit of Charisma as the main character in pretty much any case. And you're going to want just a little bit of Dex to bump up your defenses. Your skills are going to focus in order: Persuasion, then Religion, and then probably Nature or whatever else you want to tack on there. But Persuasion is the important part. Even though this build is a full Wiz caster, it still both requires and has room for you getting a little bit of Charisma on there. For the feats, you can start out with extra channels if you're really worried about healing in the early game. Another way to do it will be skill focus persuasion and the persuasive feat fairly early. You just don't want to fail persuasion checks ever on anything, you know? There's only one other major choice that you choose with the character, and that's your domain. You're going to want to go Erastal as your deity, and you're going to want to go Animal Domain as your domain choice. because what this does is it gives you a free animal companion once you hit the 4th level. Then once we get that, we can take the boon companion feat and then bring that guy up to our level properly. Let's do, sorry. Let's do persuasive. The benefit of this build is you don't require your feats for the character essentially at all. The very few feats that you'd want to be taking as part of the character, as part of the cleric, you get from your archetype. What that means is you can essentially utility out your feats. At 4th level, you're going to get the choice of an animal companion. Giant Centipede is good in theory, but it tends not to pay off in practice. So I would recommend Smilodon if you really want an absolute monster of an animal companion. It's really good defense, really good offense, and it gets Pounce. So if you're charging a lot in turn-based mode, Pounce is really amazing. That means your charge is going to get your full attack off. It's not just going to be one hit, it's going to be all the attacks that your animal companion has. Wolf is another good one because he gets Trip for free, so he can be a little bit of extra crowd control against enemies with low combat maneuver defenses. Monitor Lizard is nice because it has the Poison, which is pretty good early game, although it falls off late. And then Leopard is kind of your designated tank. If you want an animal companion to just sit there in the front for you and kind of save you from having to worry about a lot of things, I would say Leopard is the go-to for a full defense armor class tank animal companion. Every single ability score point up is going to go in Wisdom because you're a full caster. At your 5th level feat, we finally get the opportunity to take Boon Companion. You're going to want that immediately. Because the animal companion from the domain comes in at 4th level, and it's -4, or -3, whatever. So when you get your animal companion at the 4th level, your animal companion will be actually of the 1st level. We take Boon Companion feat because that bumps it up to at your level. Most levels, once we get it going, are actually really uneventful. Selective Channel is nice to take at some point. And apart from that, it's just kind of extra channels, you know. Especially considering we don't have the intelligence to do a lot of the more combat-focused feats. We just don't really care a ton about, you know, some of the feats for casters. They're just not super valuable for us. We're going to go over spell preps in just a moment. I will say a good meta magic to take when you get the chance is Extend Spell. Because most of the spells you cast are going to be summon spells, and we want more ways to have more animate dead, being able to increase their duration is actually really lovely. Die Hard or... Oh, at 13 you get Wings. By the end of the game, it does kind of clamp down to mandatory options. So at 13, you get the ability to take your Wings because you're an Azamar. And then at 15, this is important, guys. We're going to take Blind Fight. Okay? Now, let's look at spells. So, as Animal Domain, every single spell rank, we get one spell that's kind of locked in as a prep in there. And as an animal domain, they're not bad spells at all. So don't begrudge those or think that they're wasted slots, especially when you're able to prep them into, spontaneously spend them into summon spells. Early game, some very important spells to have are Shield of Faith is the best way to buff up your animal companion. You cast this on your animal companion at first level, and your animal companion is an unstoppable monster. Bless is pretty spectacular. Bane isn't great, but Bless very early game gives you that ever so valuable damage buff. Or attack buff, that accuracy buff that you need to really hit things. Remove Fear is awesome in the right circumstances, but it's not useful in every single fight in Kingmaker. That being said, in Wrath of the Righteous, it's a lot more important because of the demons that you fight. Protection from Alignment is alright to prep early when you only have first rank spells, but later on you'll be prepping Protection from Alignment Communal. And Unbreakable Heart is useful if you're going into anybody with enchantment effects or various mind-controlling magic. A little more situational, but very strong at that situation. In second rank, we've got the buff spells and Protection from Alignment Communal. Protection from Alignment Communal is alright in Kingmaker, but especially early game, you'll be fighting a lot of animals, true neutral, and unaligned enemies. So it doesn't have the most value. On the other hand, Bull's Strength... did we not get cat stacks? As a cleric, Bull's Strength, Bear's Endurance, and Owl's Wisdom are crucially important for you, especially early. You'll always want to have one Owl's Wisdom prepped so that you can be casting it on yourself as the Herald Collar. Bull's Strength goes on every single one of your marshals at all times. You'll probably be preparing 2 or 3 of them, especially early game when the duration is low. Bear's Endurance is nice, but it's not as mandatory. I know a lot of people who believe in the value of Aid, Blessing of Courage and Life, and the other Blessing of Luck and Resolve. These 3 are valuable buff spells, but they very rapidly and or immediately get outclassed by other buffs, so don't worry about them a ton. Pretty much your best direct damage spell, especially early, is going to be Bone Shaker. You may be saying, but I'm lawful, there's chaotic enemies, I want to take Arrow of Law. No. Bone Shaker, this entire line, are some of the best spells in the game, especially the first game. Inflict Moderate Wounds is not as good of a damage spell as Bone Shaker. Trust me on that. Also keep in mind that as a cleric, you have the ability to cast Lesser Restoration and later Restoration itself, and those are pretty important in Kingmaker. At second rank, we get Delay Poison, but more importantly, at third rank, we get Delay Poison Communal. In Kingmaker, you should never, ever, ever leave camp without this on your party. Ever. Everything in the early game of Kingmaker poisons, all of those poisons are crippling or killing. You cannot get around this spell at all times. Protection from Energy is alright, but we're going to want the communal version later. On the other hand, we get Resist Energy this early. There's an encounter in the Old Sycamore where you get ganked by a bunch of Will-o'-the-Wisps who cast Lightning Bolt on you. If you have Resist Energy Lightning Communal on you, when you get to that encounter, you will cheese the ever-living hell out of it. The other important spell at third rank is the centerpiece for our build, Animate Dead. We'll get to that in just a moment. I just want to tack on an Archon's Aura is a very nice buff. Anybody in the Aura has to will check or they get -2 to both attack rolls and saving throws and to armor class. It's amazing. So Animate Dead. We're going to cast a couple of these in a moment, but this spell raises a D4+2 undead skeletal champions. This is further expanded by our summoner feats. Our summons have a +4 enhancement bonus to strength, And they have a +1 on it. So it's actually a d4 +3 skeletons to start with. As a summoner, you will get items through the game that give you a little bit further value as a summoner. Or so I believed. Apparently not this late. Oh, here. Necromancer Staff. Grants a +3 enhancement bonus to the weapons of the monsters summoned using Animate Dead. So, this is a spectacular spell. Yeah, so this is your build, essentially. Any questions? No? Good. Later on, we get important spells like the Protection from Energy Communal. Freedom of Movement is one of the better buffs in the game. Restoration is incredibly valuable to clear permanent debuffs. And Crusader's Edge is more important in Wrath of the Righteous, but when this thing pops off, this thing pops off. Divine Power isn't super important for us here. It doesn't really stack with haste. It doesn't really stack with other luck bonuses. It's nice in isolation, but in the context of a full party, you're not going to be getting much value out of Divine Power and Angelic Aspect on a character like this. So we're just going to kind of skip it and focus on summoning itself. Righteous Might too. Yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to spell preps. Oh, then of course... What the heck? Oh, jeez. Then of course, you're going to want to... Oh, here's how you do it. At 3rd rank, Animate Dead. Extend spell. And you prepare as many of this as you can, because you want the duration on it. By the time you get later in the game, you'll already kind of have a clue of what you need. You'll be wanting your bull strength masses. You'll be wanting your, like, banishments and your heals. It's mostly heal, TBH. So, let me see. Yeah. Prayer is alright, although it's hard to find the right turn to cast it in. 3 raised deads? Oh, wow, yeah, I was definitely learning the game. And yeah, that is our Herald Collar Cleric build. In terms of items, it actually literally doesn't matter because you're never going to be in combat yourself. You may as well walk out buck naked. I have a stat stick staff. I have light armor because I can't put on anything heavier. And just defensive gear top to bottom. The Ring of Evasion is pretty nice. That's our first build. It's kind of hard to pull off for a new character. Oh, we get Slayer? Oh, dang. All right. So next is on to my favorite martial. This is my favorite martial class in Pathfinder 1E, is the Slayer. A Slayer are like... They're like rogues, except imagine if they sacrificed all the skill monkey stuff and instead focused on just murdering people. They swap out some of... They're like a hybrid class between the rogue and the ranger, which is a crazy combination. At 1st rank, you get the studied target feature from the ranger, As a move action and then as a swift action later on, you can mark somebody as a target. That gives you an accuracy and damage bonus against them. Every other level, you'll get a Slayer talent, which is basically a combat feat for free. And then at 3rd level onwards, you'll get sneak attack as a rogue would, with some minor bonuses, including an upgraded version of study target called Quarry much later. This is going to be a full martial build, so we can, like, something like this would be good. I would like to squeeze some more charisma out of it, but it's really hard to argue with 20 strength and 14 dex. Human is nice because you get the extra feat, but being a class where we get hella extra feats built into the class, it's far from mandatory. You can get away with, honestly, almost any race that you'd like. You could pick a tiefling if you want some of the special tiefling bonuses like free bite attacks. You could pick a dwarf if you wanted to load up on heavier armor and get, the dwarven weapon familiarity. Yeah, let's do that. This is Greybore 2.0 is what we're calling this build. That's the problem with dwarf, is it tanks your charisma. Maybe gnome would be better. Yikes. No, the racial bonus. Don't want to do the gnome. Halflings probably have that same racial penalty to strength because they're tiny. I think I personally have done half orc for this kind of thing before. Yeah, we can do half orc. Yeah, so you'd go a half orc, we'd go just a mainline slayer, and this would be our stat spread. We want that 20 and 14. We want that +5, +2. At 1st level, we're going to open up with ye old power attack. Power attack is a very, very good, like game-changingly good feat early game, and less spectacular late game. Another option would be opening up with weapon focus, which is incredibly valuable if you know which weapon you're going to commit to for the entire rest of the game. We're going to go orc double axe.
This is my path.
Probably chaotic neutral or something like that.
Forwards!
Our focus, of course, on skills is going to be like athletics and mobility. Just simple combat skills. We're not going to be doing a lot of skill checks with this build. So at every 2nd level, we get a Slayer talent. Most of these aren't super important or relevant. The most important one to open up with is your combat style feat. Each one of these is a combat style. It locks in when you take it, and it gives you access to basically a special list of extra valuable feats tuned to that weapon. Because we're going with the double axe, we're going to be going, obviously, 2-weapon combat. And we're going to take 2-weapon fighting. You'll see that I don't meet the requirements for these. Exactly. The whole point of these taking the style is it basically lets us skip the requirements for these. So things that we have the requirements to meet, we take in our base racial feats just for leveling up. And if they require high dex or intelligence, then we take them in the Slayer feats. We put every point into strength because that is our main attack bonus. So after we initially choose our style, it'll be a couple levels until we get another style feat. So some options that are valuable are like, if you're really worried about debuffs and you're getting debuffed with one of these a lot, you could take focusing attack for free. Slow reactions is very good, denying attacks of opportunity that lets you move around a lot. A free skill focus is never not valuable. And Kenny Observer is low-key amazing. But, to be honest, guys, you can just take a bunch of combat tricks. We love Outflank at 4th level. We love that. We love that. This is a trap feat. Don't take this. I would rather have... Cha-cha. Combat reflexes is really good, especially for the options that it opens up. We got a next combat style feat at 6th level, and we take probably improved TWF. We'd love to get double strike at some point, but it's the priority is getting improved TWF feats. At 7th level, we can now mark a studied target as a swift action, which will completely change the way you play this character. Don't take Hammer the Gap, trap feat. Seize the Moment is really good, guys. Seize the Moment is really frickin' good, guys. Trust me on that. Just please, I know it looks scary. Trust me. There's a reason why it requires another feat to get into. I believe... Oh, it's next one. At 10th level, we get our advanced feats. So we get one more combat trick feat here. And considering we already have Seize the Moment, improved critical is pretty amazing. Of course, you should always be picking the weapon type that you're focusing on. Might as well critical focus if you've already got improved critical. At 10th level, we get advanced talents. I don't think we're allowed to take an advanced talent at the level, though. Oh, we are. So, at 10th level, it unlocks a whole new list of Slayer talents for us to take. The important ones are, we can take a familiar if we really wanted to, so there are some really nice utility picks in here. Like, Hair Familiar is a classic for the +4 untyped on initiative and +2 on perception. You could also grab one to pump up like a weak save or something if you'd like. Reflex, fortitude saves, etc. Dispelling Attack is a game changer, especially later on in Wrath of the Righteous, where you'll be facing enemies with lots of permanent buffs all over them. Crippling Strike is really good, but it doesn't pay off immediately, unlike the others. Opportunist? Yeah. Better Seize the Moment is always valuable. But in the end, it kind of goes back to we want that greater TWF. Sickening Critical is really good if you're allowed to take it. We get one more elective feat at 13. We've kind of completely put off dodge. So we take that, I suppose. Oh, staggering critical's also really good. If you don't want to do sickening critical at 11, you can do staggering critical instead. I don't think it's as good, because it's not like guaranteed. But it's a way better debuff. So that's up to you. At 14, we get Quarry. And another style feat. Probably it's time to take Dispelling Attack now that we're fighting higher level enemy spellcasters. And then at 15th, guess what, guys? Blind Fight. You may be tempted to put this off till 17. I don't necessarily recommend it, although that's what I did. I think I put mine off to 19, TBH. Yeah, here we go. So this is what our martial page looks like for this. We didn't get a chance to pick up Double Slice because I'm not wearing any dex boosting gear. You'll be able to take Double Slice probably at like 11th or 10th or 9th level if you have the dex benefits to actually take the feat. But because I'm not wearing any gear, obviously I wasn't able to qualify for it. Double Slice brings that plus bonus here from 3 up to match your main hand weapon. What an Orc Double Axe is, it's one weapon that counts as dual wielding. So each head of the weapon is essentially a fully separate weapon as far as the rules are concerned. But as far as the item is concerned, that's one item with one enchantment on it. So by taking the greater TWF feats, we now have a total of 6 attacks. 2 of them are at full basic attack bonus. 2 of them are only at -5. My criticals are 19 to 20 and by 3. And we have crit confirms and all sorts of incredible debuffs on just being allowed to hit somebody. The way that you play the character is you just kind of mark the target. Here. You just kind of mark the target with studied target, and then you just beat the tar out of them. It's pretty easy to figure out. Oh, well. I'm now completely broke. I wouldn't recommend playing a fighter, especially when you have Valerie and Amiri on deck. And I definitely wouldn't recommend playing a barbarian when you have a better barbarian than you on deck. Alchemist is a lovely class, but you have the most OP character in the game already as an alchemist. Similar with a ranger. Ikundayo is pretty stellar as a ranger. Some other options you might want to go with are like the classic Sword Saint build. Yeah, let's show off how to build a Sword Saint. We're probably going to open up human for the bonus feat. And we actually need a lot less intelligence than you'd think. So, what a Sword Saint is it's essentially a Dex-focused Magus. You do get a Magus as part of the party, But he's really built to be spell striking. He's not built to be this kind of like spellblade marshal like a sword saint is. So the core bonus to being a sword saint is at first level, you become proficient in a single exotic melee weapon of your choice. You get free weapon focus with that weapon, and you're kind of everything you do benefits from using your one specific weapon that you lock in as your sword saint weapon. Further, you are not proficient with armor or shields. You cannot wear armor without taking an arcane spellcast penalty. And while wearing light or no armor, you add 1 point of intelligence bonus per Magus class level as a dodge bonus to your AC. So you don't need your intelligence to be super high, but it does turn intelligence into fully a second combat stat for this character. I don't think... Do we need weapon finesse? Yes, we do. So we take weapon finesse. We take probably combat reflexes. You could also take dodge. Yeah, I would take dodge. You want to be kind of a tank. Or you could do Piranha Strike for damage. And then a good one for this is S-Stock. I like doing S-Stock for this particular build. Although I don't think there are as many good S-Stocks as there are rapiers in the game itself. But obviously, you can pick any finesse one-handed weapon for this. It's just that S-Stock gets the benefits of being an exotic. When it comes to your spell learns, it's not a huge deal. You're not locked or pigeonholed into what you learn because you are a wizard-style prepared arcane caster. But you'll be wanting to focus more on things like self-buffs and utility than you will damage.
I'm not touching that. Don't know, don't care.
We get Spell Strike, and honestly, we don't really care about it. We're not going to be doing a lot of spell striking with this build. We'd probably go with Reduced Person over Enlarged Person, actually. Third level, we get Arcana. These are basically your special choice feats for being a Magus. The important one to take here is Fencing Grace. It requires weapon finesse, but it basically gives you dex to damage for that particular weapon. Depending on your weapon, you might have Slashing Grace as your option instead of Fencing Grace, but they're essentially the same thing as far as this build is concerned. Don't at me in the comments, I swear. I almost always do Arcane Accuracy, but this is the good one, Wand Mastery. Wand Mastery is really good. Extended Magic isn't bad either. At this point, we're just spinning wheels on the spell preps. At 4th level, we get more Mega stuff that we're probably not going to use a lot. Cat's Grace. Bear's Endurance. Could take Scorching Ray if we wanted to be spell striking. But, you know, I'm trying to emphasize the fact... Oh, here. Let's take Blur. Cat's Grace and Blur are probably your two that you're learning out of the gate at 2nd rank. A bonus Magus feat. If you're really dipping deep into your arcane pool, you can take extra arcane pool feat. But otherwise, just common martial stuff is really nice. Dodge for more tankiness. Combat reflexes for more attacks of opportunity. And more self buffs and defensive stuff. It doesn't look like it at first, because when you hear you are not proficient with armor or shields, you're probably like, oh, this is a glass cannon. Actually, this is a tank build, by the way, guys. At 7th level, you get your int plus your dex on your initiative rolls, so you're always out there first, too. So at 7th level, we get fight. Hi, Kenzie. Meow, meow. Meow. Hi. That's good, Kenzie. At 7th level, we get fighter training, which is really nice, because that opens up some crazy options in terms of defensive and offensive feats for us. Most notably, we get weapon specialization, and later we get greater weapon focus. I think we have to be a little bit higher level to take GWF, though. We love haste. Vampiric Touch is your touch spell at this level. We actually prefer crowd control over direct damage when it comes to just extra skills to stick in there. Fighter level 8. So we need to be 11th level to take greater weapon focus. That makes sense. Crit specialization is ever lovely, especially on a weapon like the S-Dock. Don't ever worry about form changers, especially on a build like this. We're not going to be casting form changes. Greater invisibility is very funny. And Dimension Door is pretty epic. We get bonus attacks of opportunity, stacks with combat reflexes. Which means if you'd like to take Seize the Moment right about now, pretty good, guys. Outflank is another stellar choice. What, Kenzie? You brought your little rubber band to me. That's very cute. See, like this, we don't need, because it functions as haste. Next, we're never going to be in a fight without haste. So this is the big choice at this level, is do you want Ghost Blade so you can cut incorporeal easy? Not super necessary. Dimension Strike, so you can attack as a melee touch. That is crazy against the right enemy. Or Devoted Blade, which can give you Holy or Axiomatic on a whim, which is pretty nice. But obviously Dimension Strike is insane. Not obviously. If you're a new player, you probably don't understand the difference between a weapon attack and a touch attack. Believe me when I say this is one of the most broken things you could possibly get in the game. If you ever find a ancient dragon with completely stone scales that's like layered in 15 layers of magic defense and stuff, your touch attacks are going to poke right through it. Kenzie, please don't throw the rubber band at my keyboard out of spite. Oh my god, it's wet. Yikes. Wow. Yeah, Sword Saint's a good build, by the way, guys. This is really good. You will not complain with this. Probably crit focus, actually outflank. VSS is insane. And Baleful Polymorph is the funniest spell in the game. Bar none. Alright, 15th level. You're never going to guess what we're going to take, guys. Oh, Greater Weapon Specialization is decent. But it's not more important than Blind Fight. Especially on this build, it would be fairly valid to put it off till 17th if you want to rush the GWS. But in Kingmaker, for legal reasons, I cannot recommend anything other than Blind Fight at 15th to 17th level. You simply must take it in Kingmaker. You'll thank me. You'll thank me. You don't even know what you're going to thank me for, but you're going to thank me, buddy. Not you, Kenzie. You're not going to thank me. I don't expect you to ever fight the Wild Hunt, sweetie. I will protect you. So, yeah, the S-Stock is an 18 to 20 times 2 weapon. What that means is it has a really wide crit range, and we're going to make that even wider with improved crit. So you'll see, like, my attack bonus is a little bit lower than that Orc's was. I have way fewer attacks, but I have a bigger damage out of the gate per attack. I have a huge crit range. That is huge. That's insane with Seize the Moment. And we get all sorts of ancillary benefits, like we get spellcasting. We always have shield up. We always have reduced person up. We always have expeditious retreat up, right? We provide our own Cat's Grace, which is crazy. We have our mirror images to go into combat, which makes us just about unkillable for a lot of the game. Later on, we start getting some of the best buffs and debuffs in the game, like displacement and haste. And we're not even going to talk about how funny Greater Invisibility is. Invisibility doesn't end if attacks. Oh, I'm stupid. Yeah, this is our Sword Saint. Let's see, abilities. You're going to get all sorts of buttons in your middle menu, and you're just going to have to figure out how to use them, is all I'm going to say about that. Fortunately, you don't need to mind much about spell combat and spell strike, because we're just kind of skipping them on this Sword Saint build. Those are more for Ragongar. This guy. I don't even want to know how I built this fool. Oh. Oh. Blind Fight at 19. Poor fella. Poor fella. And yeah, that is our Sword Saint. Let's see. I want one more character to round this out. I think the classic would be a sorcerer. So, in Kingmaker, it's really important to know that there's multiple scenes in the game where you are alone and you have to do stuff without any party members. And it's equally important to know that at multiple scenes in the game, a lot, you're going to have to personally make persuasion checks on people if you want to get the best outcomes. So if you want to have the most success in Kingmaker, you're going to want to choose a character with... Oh my god, Scaled Fist. Derp. You're going to want to choose a character with Charisma as a main stat. Scaled Fist is the way to do that if you're going to be a martial. And Sorcerer is the way to do that if you want to be a full caster. So, Scaled Fist. What a fun class. Something like this is a pretty good stat line. We want our dex high, but we don't need to absolutely max it out. And we want our charisma high, but we don't necessarily want it to be better than our dex. If you're... I would save the full charisma build for the sorcerer. I wouldn't overcommit to charisma as a monk if you're going to do the monk variant. If you're going to do a monk. So, we probably go human. Or, actually, yeah, I haven't shown off the tiefling version. So let's do a tiefling. Motherless is very funny because you get a free bite attack. And that's actually low-key one of the most OP things in Kingmaker. Not great in the second game. Not great in Wrath of the Righteous because there's a lot, like a lot of enemies who are going to make you very sad if you bite them. They're covered in slime, or their blood is acid, or... it's not as good. But Motherless is really good for a monk in the first game. It does require some compromises, though. You do have to cut a lot harder in your dump stats in order to get to that nice +4/+3 kind of bonus. So consider a more neutral class if you're not trying to kind of min-max what you can get out of this. We're going to start with Persuasion Proficiency. We really need this. This is the whole point of the build. So what Scaled Fist gives us is, to start off with, we're a monk. So we get Flurry of Blows. We basically get a free perma-haste that stacks with haste as long as we're unarmed. Our unarmed weapons count as real martial weapons, so we don't need to worry about getting punished for that. And here's what's important. When unarmed and unencumbered, a Scaled Fist adds his charisma bonus to his armor class. So, that's going to be fun. But you do need to remember from the start that you're A, a charisma character, that you're B, a tank, and that you're C, not going to do the most damage out of the gate because of those two things. It's pretty safe to open with the weapon focus on unarmed strike. Although you'll notice as a monk, you're going to get access to some crazy, unique stuff, all sorts of stances and styles. Dodge is another really good one because it opens up prerequisites. And deflect arrows is kind of funny. It's not great, but deflect arrows is kind of funny. I can give it that. So as our starting feats, weapon focus, unarmed strike, and dodge are pretty good openers.
So it comes to this.
You do have to pick lawful as a
I
monk.
sense something.
So that's something to keep in mind, that you're locked into being lawful as a monk, and if you ever become neutral and are no longer lawful, it makes you sad. So don't do that. At second level, we get evasion, which is most epic sauced. Crane style. Dragon style is more for a strength version, and you can, if you wanted to, do a strength version, but that would be probably better off on a monk who's less mad. We're kind of, as you saw, we had to dump our strength really hard in order to get our charisma this high. So instead, we're probably going to be going defensive tanky stats, like Crane style. As soon as you take Crane style, this is kind of the monk's equivalent of power attack or piranha strike. This is going to be your kind of style modifier that you're always going to be in. At third level, the Scaled Fist chooses a type of dragon. Normally monks get like key powers. Instead, as a Scaled Fist, we get dragon powers. I don't know if I believe we need that. Here. Let's check. Yeah, so you're going to be punching real gently for that first level. And that's something you'll notice is your AC is going to be comically high in comparison to other first level characters, but your attack bonus is going to be comically low if you go full dex like this. That's why we take weapon finesse. I like blue dragons. But because we're lawful evil, let's go with the white dragon. Actually, that is the blue dragon. Yeah, we're going to do a full lawful evil build. That's going to be fun. So, we go blue dragon. It kind of overlaps with Ragongar, though. Dang it. Okay, fuck it. Black dragon it is. You could choose charisma as your stat that you're dumping extra ability points into, but I would recommend doing dex instead. That will give you more combat viability. Bark skin is the only one of these that isn't just, you know, subsumed by a million other things, although True Strike is pretty good too. But I would go bark skin because this is kind of our tank build. You get the Nerevarine bonus? Okay. Straight up ignoring corpus disease out here. Not gonna lie, guys, we do love outflank. Oh, the other one is Crane Wing. When fighting defensively with at least one hand free, you gain a huge dodge bonus. Style Strike. I don't think I've ever gone 5 levels into Scaled Fist. I'm not gonna lie, fam. Oh, that's funny. So, I'm going to give you a disclaimer. Most power gamers online will tell you this is where you stop. You don't ever go to 6th level in Monk Scaled Fist. You instead go to some other class. So, if you are trying to go with some crazy stuff, I would say, I don't necessarily recommend, but I would say it would be very fun to then take Sorcerer, get 5 to 10 levels in Sorcerer, and that should unlock the Dragon Disciple, a prestige class for you. That's how I played my first run of Wrath of the Righteous, as a Dragon Disciple. It's very fun because you're basically permanently a dragon. You get a fuckload of bite attacks, and you both have good spellcasting and are a great martial tank. For the sake of these beginner build guides, I'm going to carry it through with the monoclassed monk, though. And then afterwards, I'm going to show you a fun way to do a sorcerer. Combat reflexes is ever valuable, especially if we're getting it as a free combat feat. We take crane style feats all the way. If you see anything with the word crane in it in this build, that's going to be a goal for you. We're just going full crane style because this is kind of a tank. We don't do a lot of damage, but we should be just about unkillable. And I really mean that. Outflank is useful, not necessarily because it's great for you, but it benefits everybody around you if they have the teamwork feats. Although, I'm not going to lie, guys. Seize the Moment's pretty classic. I mean, by that same logic that I just said, is if everybody around you has Seize the Moment and you have Outflank, your Outflank is doing nothing. If everybody else has Seize the Moment and you don't, you're kind of wasting their time. These feats don't really benefit us. Guys, I'm going to take blind fight, and you can't stop me. Improved initiative is actually really valuable, especially if you're going turn-based, but it's good even if you're not going turn-based. I want to make that clear. Outflank. At 15th level, we can breathe acid. 12th? Why does it say 15th when it gives it to us at 12th? What does it give us at 15th level? Nothing. Curious. Just like the other Persuader build that we had, it's always valuable to grab skill-focused persuasion because +6 is really good, guys. Don't know if I need to explain a lot there. In general, +6 bonus are 3 really good words to put together, if you weren't aware. Disarm this trap. We can take blind fight for free at 14th. That's super early though. Like I'm gonna be honest, you don't need to take blind fight this early, and you're gonna be a little confused if you do why I'm yelling at you about this. Cough. Cough, 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 cough. I personally like Cold Eye Strike key power. It is oddly useful. But immunity is always a good word. I like the word immunity. It makes me happy. And then we take persuasive. So we have both skill focused persuasion and persuasive. So this is our guy. You'll see he doesn't have the most spectacular damage on a hit. What he has is a really high armor class out of the gate with no gear on. And with gear, that goes up exponentially, essentially. Because you know, you're adding deflection bonus. Oh, derp. Derp derp derp. That's what that's for. That's what that's for, guys. Okay. Let me gear up and stop being a stupid head. And I'll show you guys how this is really supposed to work. Okay, that's as good as we're getting. And then this is... Do I have no other bracers of armor? Oh, it's because we got robes. Oh, that's lovely and all, but I need an armor bonus, not a deflection bonus. Okay, so what makes this class really lovely is it may have come off as unimpressive in the character creation because it seemed like a couple things were missing or relying on other things. Here's the way this really works. If you're adding your armor class bonus with charisma and dexterity, and you're unarmored, right? That means this thing is giving us armor class bonus. 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 Another way to get around this is also just by casting mage armor on them with your wizard. So our armor class is huge, and that's even before we've kicked in our crane style. With crane style, this is going to be about 45, not 35. at 15th level. You are as tanky as a literal demigod before buffing. You'll also notice my attack bonus is stupendously high. And that's kind of in thanks to this. Because at 3rd level, we take Weapon Finesse, which allows us to apply our dexterity to our fists. Fists count as finesse weapons. Apparently not agile or anything. But if we put on an Amulet of Agile Fists, that gives the weapon the Agile trait, which gives you dex to damage. And it has built right in the enhancement bonus. So this is essentially your magic weapon. This is your Hand Wraps of Mighty Blows in modern parlance. Like, look at the damage difference. 1 to 11, 13 to 23. Pretty good. Another secret benefit to it is your flat-footed AC. Because you're not wearing armor, all of these benefits that you're getting apply except for the dodge bonus from your crane-style feats. So it doesn't matter how the enemy is trying to attack you, as long as they're not will checking you, because ironically your wisdom is really, really low for a monk. Yeah. It's also worth pointing out that this doesn't show the bite attack, but the bite attack is getting the benefits from your Weapon Finesse and your Amulet of Agile Fists. So your bite is a whole extra bonus attack at the same plus 27, 13 to 23. All in all, it's a very well-rounded build with the benefit of having, like, an insanely high persuasion compared to most other martials, unless you're doing a really specific persuasion build. Unless you're doing a dazzling display build, you're not really going to have a higher persuasion than this on a martial, and this is going to have a higher armor class than that dazzling display build, by far. Like, by 15 or more. So, I think I would highly recommend this as your go-to monk to start the game with. Especially in Kingmaker. It's even better in Kingmaker than it is in Wrath of the Righteous. We're going to do one last build here. And that is our Sorcerer. I would say that there are two ways you can do your Sorcerer. We can either go with a transmutation build, probably, or an illusion build. I'm going to show the illusion build because I think that's a lot more fun. I don't think it's necessarily stronger, especially in the first game, but it's going to be very fun. A lot of classes have archetypes that are kind of weird, bad, or hard to build around. Like a bard, you're going to have a very different experience if you're a bard versus an archaeologist, who's kind of like a self-buffer martial, versus a thundercaller, who is a sonic damage caster, versus a flame dancer, who's kind of like a utility buffer. Sorcerer is different. Sorcerer, all four of the archetypes are essentially completely different classes. So before you go into a Sorcerer, you should strongly consider like what you want to maximize on the character. Because the base Sorcerer is an amazing charisma character. You will get the persuasion bonus of the very gods. The Imperial Sorcerer is actually really awesome because it's basically a Sorcerer Cleric. You may think, but Chase, isn't the Oracle the Sorcerer Cleric? No. The Oracle is its own thing. The Sorcerer Imperial Sorcerer is literally a Cleric but a Sorcerer. Your main stat becomes Wisdom. That's what this means. Derives from Insight rather than Force of Personality. That means your main caster stat is actually Wisdom. It replaces your bloodline with a special Imperial bloodline that's focused on various holy, healing, and anti-evil benefits. Oh, here. You use your wisdom rather than your charisma to determine all class features. You gain a +2 bonus on lower religion checks. This is amazing, but to be honest, you get a lot of clerics in this game, and wisdom is a pretty, like, good stat across the board in your party members. Sage Sorcerer is kind of a flip side. Sage Sorcerer is the wizard sorcerer. With a Sage Sorcerer, you use your intelligence rather than your charisma. And you get a special bloodline, again, that's focused on basically abjurations and universalist type magic. You get Magic Missile for free at 3rd level kind of thing. Sage Sorcerer is freaking amazing if you want a skill monkey. Because almost every other skill monkey in the game, you're mad in some aspect, right? Like a rogue, you'll have good skills as a rogue, or as a bard, you'll have good skills, but you're putting your ability points in things other than what your skills are scaling off of. With a Sage Sorcerer, you'll have 20 intelligence, and you have, like, all of the skills in the entire game. If you want to feel like you know everything, don't go with a wizard. Go with a Sage Sorcerer. Sylvan Sorcerer is arguably the most powerful of all the 4. And the answer of why that is 2 simple words. Animal Companion. Sylvan Sorcerer, you can think of it as the Sorcerer Druid, basically. It's not 1-to-1 because it's still an arcane caster. It uses the Sorcerer spell list, not the Druid spell list. But you'll kind of be doing, you'll like be in the same spheres as a Druid, except as a Sorcerer. You kind of crib some Sorcerer stuff. You get your Animal Companion. But ultimately, you're still a charisma character, is something to note importantly here. But we're going to be focusing on the charisma itself. Okay. Sorry about that long preview before we actually get into the class. But there are so many different sorcerer builds you can do, and I'm only going to show one, even within the mainline sorcerer class, that I just want to emphasize you can customize this in a big way. We're going to start Gnome because we're going with an illusion shadow magic build. If you're going with a transmuter, enchanter, or evoker style build, I would probably recommend an elf, a half elf, or an Azamar. Perhaps a tiefling, because certain tiefling types actually are essentially the best in the game for sorcerers. Because, here. They do not suffer a penalty to their charisma if they have levels in Sorcerer or Eldritch Scion of an Infernal bloodline. Basically, out of the gate, if you don't read this last sentence, this is already one of the best ancestries in the entire game. You get stellar... This one sucks for a sorcerer because you get the -2 to charisma. Where's the good one? Oh, right there. Guys, I'm stupid. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think it's just this one. Oh, I thought there was more. Oh, it's the pure tiefling. Dex, int, con whiz. Scorching ray, resist energy. So yeah, I would say if you wanted to play an enchanter, I think a spite spawn tiefling will be just about the best thing you could possibly pick. I highly recommend a spite spawn enchantment sorcerer. That's not what we're doing today, But I just can't underline this enough that this is going to be a lovely build if you want to go for it, especially in the second game. Yeah, I'll probably do a build guide for the Spite Spawn Tiefling in Wrath of the Righteous in my follow-up video to this. But because we're doing an illusionist in the first game, we're gonna go with the gnome, and you'll see why. So gnome, sorcerer. There's a lot of options we can pick in the bloodline. Arcane's good. Celestial's good. The Draconics are okay. The Elementals are... The more you want to break the game, the better the Elementals are. If you want to play fair, they're pretty mediocre. But if you're trying to do some bullshit, Elementals are really good. We're going with the Shadowcaster. What can I say? It's on flavor. We got to. Let's go Fae. Now, there's a lot of things that can be said about what to do here, and I won't say any of them. Put your charisma to 20. Next question. We can dump strength entirely, to be honest. It's just a matter of how vulnerable do you want to be to fatigue. And wisdom, dex, stuff like that are pretty good off stats. We don't need a lot of dex because we won't be casting a lot of touch spells. But if you were casting touch attack spells, you'd probably want this at 14. Instead, we're going to leave this low, and we're going to keep our wisdom high so we have good initiative checks. You're going to always want persuasion at max if you're a charisma character. You don't want to trust anybody but yourself with that. Yeah, I guess we're a whiz character. No, let's go UMD. That's the way you're supposed to do a wizard, is persuasion UMD. Spell focus. Illusion. It's not necessary at first level, but just be aware that this is the entire point of the build, essentially. Everything we can possibly do to add to the difficulty class of our illusion spells is the best possible thing we could get. Let's see what other options we have at first level. Elemental focus is good if we're an elemental caster, which we're not. Metamagics will be useful later, but they're worthless at first level. Spell penetration is awesome, unless you're fighting bandits in Jamandi Aldori's hallway. At first level as a sorcerer, we get a bonus feat. Go ahead and guess. So, opening up with greater spell focus in your chosen spell tree is pretty classic. It's hard to get around that. And of course, being a Fey spellcaster, you also get benefits to enchantment. You can either leave those on the side or double down on them. It's pretty up to you. Mage armor is mandatory. Shield is good. Color spray is better.
I won't give up.
Yeah, we're gonna be Tartuccio 2.0. Oh yeah, we are Tartuccio 2.0, huh? Good enough for me. Alright, so Fey bloodline, 20 charisma and a decent wisdom, lots of persuasion, greater spell focus and illusion, and color spray to start with, because that's our first rank illusion spell.
This is my path.
Oh dear.
This doesn't suit me. Let's move.
I don't think there are any good prestige classes for us in this game. We honestly just want to monoclass this in Kingmaker. Spell specialization is awesome later. Spell penetration is awesome later. I think you'd be benefited by taking skill focused persuasion relatively early. It's more like there's just not much to get until you have some better spells on board. But improved, you know what, actually, honestly, improved initiative is pretty spectacular for a grease caster. Which, incidentally, is what we learn at 2nd level. Even though, yeah, I know, it's not an illusion spell. I know. We're going to take it anyways. Sleep is pretty good too, but Lindsay knows it, and she'll probably be better at casting sleep and hypnotism than you will. I know Vanish is technically an illusion spell, but it's not that good, and isn't that good in this scenario. You could also take Reduce Person if you wanted to be buffing your marshals. Or Enlarge Person, I guess. But remember that you're a sorcerer who has this stuff locked on you forever. So Grease is probably the best play. This isn't like a prepared caster, you know, where I wasn't making such a big deal about our learned spells because we can learn from scrolls also. With a sorcerer, you're a spontaneous caster, so this is your spell list locked in forever. It's actually relatively important to get at least your main spells before you start playing around with stuff. That's why at 1st level, you simply have to take Mage Armor and Color Spray. At 2nd level, you simply have to take Grease. At 3rd level, I think you simply have to take a good buff spell. Oh, you only get one. Dang. Bone Shaker is awesome, even though we're not focusing on it. Create Pit's really good, even though we're not focusing on it. Other utility spells you might take are like Mirror Image, maybe a good buff. I think I'm going to sit on the Bull's Strength at my 2nd level take, or perhaps Cat's Grace. We get Hideous Laughter for free. Cranking that persuasion up. Something to keep in mind is your bloodline spells are kind of off cadence. So if you want to be an enchantment caster and you take Fey Bloodline because you're like, oh, that way I don't need to learn Hideous Laughter because my bloodline gives it to me. Be aware that the earliest level you're supposed to be casting Hideous Laughter is actually 4. You're actually getting it a level behind in this case. So it can kind of feel weird at times. Being an illusion caster, we're still not doing much. The first couple of spell ranks are pretty thin for an illusion caster, and you'll find yourself just kind of playing utility until later. Do we get shadow sculpting? Is that only in the 2nd game? Did I just totally gnome out for nothing? It's kind of funny. In the 2nd game, there's a feat called Shadow Shaper. You should probably take that right about now. In this case, we take probably Spell Penetration. And we get Bloodline feats. Wonder if it says dodge, precise shot, quicken spell, lore nature. Yeah, nothing great, to be honest, for our bloodline feats. But don't expect a ton from most sorcerer bloodlines in their bloodline feats. That's not really what you're here for, right? You're here for the spells. We take, I don't know, magic missile? I don't know. We're still just kind of spinning wheels. Haste is really good. Heroism is really good. You know, if you can't do anything directly to advance the main power of your character, it's hard to argue with universal utility. But at 4th rank is where we start to have fun. At 4th rank, we get ye old phantasmal killer. This is about when we start to get fun options. Can I get a greater spell penetration? And good old greater invisibility. Remember that if you have your one good offensive spell at a level, as a sorcerer, that's good enough. You don't need much offensive variety. You just need to make sure that your one good offensive spell is good enough to hit everything with. At 5th, we take Shadow Evocation, which is very important. This is what makes this build, you know, this is what justifies our early game. Because up until level 6, it will be a little bit rough. You'll feel like you won't have a lot of options. Although those options should be decent if you do it right. You shouldn't, if you feel like your options aren't doing a lot, you may have made a mistake in putting this character together at some point, or perhaps it's in your playstyle. Maybe you're trying to force the character to do something it's not intended to do. Remember that very early, before about the 8th to 10th level, you're full support as a caster. Casters are a second fiddle in the early game. It's later on that they come alive, because with Shadow Conjuration, I can now cast almost any spell in the game with the one learned. And then later on, we can also take spell specialization in Shadow Evocation. I'll show you how that works in just a moment. Dimension Door is great. Protection from Energy Communal is great. Bone Shatter is stellar. I briefly underlined the lower rank version of it, but 4th rank, Bone Shatter, this is where it's at. Because it gives a guaranteed exhaustion or fatigue on somebody that it lands on. So it's effectively a guaranteed debuff on them, even if they make the save. And it's a really good debuff. Icy Prison is probably the best 5th rank spell. Phantasmal Whip. Phantasmal Whip. Phantasmal Whip. I should say that more time is for the cast, so that goes down into the AI transcribing this. Phantasmal Whip, guys. Everybody loves Bull Strength Mass. There's no good illusion spells at 6th, so this might be a good level to start. Oh, Phantasmal Putrefaction. What am I saying? Did we get it for free or something? Nope. Yeah, Phantasmal Putrefaction. If it's an illusion spell, and it sounds scary, that's probably what you're going to want to take on this character. We don't get Persistent Spell in this game, it looks like. But if you can take Quicken Spell from your Bloodline feats, that's really good. If you want to take elemental focus in an element to benefit your shadow conjuration to that element, that works too. And your spell specialization probably wants to stay locked on your shadow spells, because those will give you the most use out of increased caster level benefits. You should also at 5th rank, at 6th rank? Surely we have Shadow Evocation too. Oh, Shadow Evocation? Did I skip Shadow Conjuration? There's really no search bar, is there? I think Shadow Conjuration is not in this game. Okay. Icy Prison is great. Feeble Mind is freaking hilarious. Constricting Coils is stellar. At 5th rank, you start to get a Baleful Polymorph. Boy, we love that. There's a lot of options at this level that you can take. You could also take Animal Growth if Ikundayo, or if you're a Sage, Sylvan Sorcerer. Animal Growth is really good at 5th rank. And Sirocco is pretty borderline overpowered. Always. Or you could just go with Heroism. Yes, at every single level you do have to reselect that. There are no illusion spells at this level. We can take buff spells. Legendary Proportions on your Barbarian is always funny. Do I have Greater Spell Pen? Yes. And at this point, it's like, I don't know, whatever. You want to splash a new spell focus? Yeah, we love enchantment. Feeble Mind. Sirocco. Power Word Blind. No, we more do like Insanity. Hell yeah. So this character as a spellcaster is a little different than the spellcasters have done up until now because we're a spontaneous caster. So we don't need to go through an extensive preparation. That process is more in the learning of them. We don't know a ton of spells per level, but the ones we do know, like at 1st level, Grease does everything in the world. And we have Mage Armor, Shield, and Magic Missile to fill in the gaps for there. At 2nd level, Hideous Laughter does everything in the world. And we have a buff and some defense to kind of fill in the gaps there. 3rd rank, we're going to be so busy casting the important 3rd rank buffs that it doesn't even matter. At 4th rank, we get Phantasmal Killer. And that's our main spell. In fact... Oh, it's +4. Quicken Phantasmal Killer is pretty funny, guys. Don't say I told you that. At 5th rank, Shadow Evocation is like the go-to cast. Okay, so I still haven't explained Shadow Evocation strictly. Shadow spells are not like normal illusions. Normal illusions only do illusory stuff, but shadow spells weave in like quintessential matter from the plane of shadow to add a bit of reality to your illusions. Enemies that are affected by a shadow spell first make a will save to believe it or disbelieve it. If they disbelieve it, they only take a 5th damage from it. If they believe it, if they fail the will save, they take full damage from the Shadow Evocation. Then, you can choose any spell up to that rank in the evocation tree to cast with the Shadow Evocation. So this one thing that we learned can be lightning damage, or fire damage, or ice damage, or sonic damage. And they each will have different saves. They'll each target different defenses. So the downside to it is the enemy gets an extra save to reduce it. The will, disbelief. The upside is it has crazy versatility. And the later illusion spells just get better and better. Phantasmal Putrefaction or Phantasmal Web, especially Phantasmal Web, this ends encounters. It's enemies only. It doesn't hit your allies. If they fail the will save, they're caught up in the web and they can't move. And then they have to make fort saves or they become completely out of combat, essentially. This just ends encounters. You don't once you fail the Phantasmal Web save, you're just out. I think it should show the difficulty class. No? We don't do DCs in this UI? Okay. But we got the DC as high as we could get with our spell focus and our penetration. You'll notice that it really felt like I was spinning a lot of wheels because there's kind of a lot of extra free feats on a character like this. I would recommend probably looking at maybe 2 spell schools to spell focus. If you're a Fey sorcerer, like doing enchantment and illusion would be really good. Other sorcerers don't need to diversify, and they can really get away with specializing hard. Okay. That was a 2-hour stream. We covered a lot of content. I believe we covered 5 builds in up to the 15th level and how to get started in Pathfinder Kingmaker. And I presume at some point I'll edit this and definitely won't dump this on YouTube with no context and be surprised when nobody watches it ever. Thank you and take care.